So you did white cross and you did it like this. So this is a really good start for your solve. A 3-move cross is really, really good. And what makes it even better is this free pair that you get right after, right in front of you. However, I don't think that the angle you did this from is the best angle to do it from. You regripped twice just to do 3 moves, and that can really be fixed. I recommend doing an X2 from the angle you did it from, and doing it like this. That way when you regrip for the small R, your right hand is in the perfect position to insert this free pair. Also, you could have done a 6-move X cross like this. So your first pair was this, pretty easy first pair, and you did it in the standard way. And this solution is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the way you executed it. When you tried to do this move, this U move, I could see that you tried to move with your right hand and with your left index finger like this, but you locked up and your left finger actually undershot and didn't reach the actual side it needed to. So I recommend just executing this pair solution back and forth while paying attention to the U moves that you're doing with your left index finger, where you're pushing and then pulling. Your next pair was then red-green, which you did like this. You had no reason to rotate for this pair. You should have just done it rotationless like this. Also, another good pair option would be either orange and green, which you can rotate and solve with double sexy. Or you could quickly take care of the blue-orange pair by either inserting the corner like this, or keyholing it like this. So your next pair was this one, and you did it like this. And this was, again, the standard solution, so no problems there. It was just with the execution of the U2 on the way to setting up this pair that could use work. You did a U, and then a rotation, and then another U. Instead of doing that, all you should be doing is noticing that it's a U2 away from being away from the FR spot from this angle, and then planning 2 moves at the same time, a rotation and a U2. That way you can do the U2 while you're rotating, like this. And again, another good alternative pair is this blue-orange pair, which similarly can be inserted with keyhole. Or maybe even rotate and do this, making your last pair 2-gen. Then for your last pair, you did this. So when you were done with your third pair, you were looking at the cube with green front, and you had your blue-orange pair in the back right. So you really don't have to rotate in order to do this pair. You did a Y prime rotation 3 times, which is the equivalent of doing a Y rotation, which is, 3 times worse than doing 1 rotation. So that was in part caused by your inability to recognize the pair. Probably because the edge was already solved and you didn't keep track of that, so you just looked for the edge in the top layer and you were confused. But anyway, the best way of doing this pair from this angle would be like this. No rotation necessary. You then had this OLL, which you did like this. And the alg itself was fine. I myself use the lefty version from the U2 angle. I think it flows better. But if you're going to use the righty version, then you should definitely do the first U2 with your right hand. That way you can do the next U move with your left index, and the last one with your right. That way you're alternating fingers for each U move, which makes it much smoother to execute. So then you had this as your PLO, which you did like this. I seriously don't understand why you did 4 U moves in order to recognize the G-perm when it was literally already in the angle that you needed it to be. So you should really practice your 2-sided PLO recognition, but I'll talk more about that in the end of the video. What's also very important is the way that you finger trick this G-perm. You're doing a very awkward finger trick that I don't think works, and here's how you should do it instead. R2, U with left index pull, R prime, U, R prime, U prime, R, U prime, R2, U prime D with both left hand fingers, R prime, U with right index, R, down prime with either the right hand or the right ring finger. But you should really switch your G perm finger trick to that. So for your second solve, you did your cross like this. Your pieces were here, 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 and here. Did it like this. So this was a good cross, but it sucks that you didn't preserve the pair. But it's not that bad since your first pair options are pretty good. However, here are a couple solutions I found where you can preserve the pair. This one in particular may seem like it's not worth it since it's a 10-move cross, but it gives a free first 2 pairs, which is really, really good. You can solve it in 6 moves. So for your first pair, you went for this, green-orange, and you did this. So this definitely was not the best pair to go for in the beginning. You definitely have some better first pair options. The easiest to track and the easiest to do would probably be the green-red, because you can just pair it up like that and then quickly insert it in the back and then you don't have to worry about it. Or even you could do this blue-orange pair, which looks like it's far away from being solved, but it's actually just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 moves away from being solved. And even if you were to pick this pair, there's a better way you can do it. If you rotated and did a U prime, and your slot's back here, you can do an even shorter solution like this. And hey, it even gets us a free pair. You then did your second pair as red-green. You did it like this. So this wasn't the most efficient choice for this pair, but it wasn't the worst because you still have this blue-orange 6-mover option, but this pair is way more visible and it makes sense that you picked it. But it's better if you rotate before starting the pair, rather than starting the solution and rotating at the end just to do 3 moves. So instead, this would be better. Rotate first, then solve. Now you have it in the back, and your last 2 pairs are on the right, which makes it much easier for look ahead. You then did this blue-red pair as your third pair, and you did it like this. So your solution was good, but again, you did not need to rotate to do the last 3 moves of the pair. Instead, you could have used Y to F moves like this. That way you don't even have to rotate in order to have your last pair in the front right slot. You then did your last pair like this. And the solution was pretty much perfect, except for the fact that you did U prime and then U prime again. You should have just done a double flick U2 and then gone straight into the ALG. You then did your OLL like this. That ALG is alright, but I recommend that you use this ALG in general. And specifically for this case because it'll force a U perm. And then you had an R perm, which you did like this. That ALG is fine, but you should have started the ALG with a righty double flick rather than a lefty double flick. Because that way when you start with the righty, then you can do the second one with a lefty double flick, and then you're alternating, making the ALG flow much better. Or if you want, you can use the ALG I use, which is literally just the inverse of the standard, and that goes like this. So for your third solve, your cross pieces were here, 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 and here. And you did it like this. So this cross was 7 moves in 1 rotation, but we can make it 6 moves and no rotations. And also, if you really wanted to, you could have just inserted this edge without rotating, like that. But it's kind of awkward, so I recommend just finding a shorter cross. You did your first pair like this. You then chose orange-green as your first pair, and you did it like this. And then you actually rotated and then inserted it into the wrong slot. So obviously inserting a pair into the wrong slot is not what you want to be doing, and that's going to hurt your solve. But this could have been avoided if you just tracked this edge and knew where it was going to be once you're done with cross. That way you can just rotate and get into the ALG like this, and then insert the pair pretty easily in 6 moves. You then did this blue-red pair as your second pair, like this. No complaints with that solution. And because you did the solution that way, you got this free pair, which you did like this. And although rotating to see your last 2 front pairs is good, I recommend not rotating until after the pair so that you can just get straight into this pair and then not worry about it. So that right when you're done with this blue-red pair, you can get to this blue-orange pair without having to do any rotations. So you then did your third/fourth pair like this. You chose this pair. Rotate, insert. So first of all, you shouldn't have rotated to insert this pair. You could have just done like that, and then you wouldn't have to rotate again to insert this pair. You can just do it rotationless, and that's a rotationless last two pairs. But what's even better than that is not doing this pair at all and solving this pair first. And you might think that the standard thing to do would be to take it out and then put it in like that, but no. It's much better to do this alg, and much easier to do. That way you get a significantly easier pair for your last pair rather than having to do this pair like that. But you inserted the pair like this, and then clearly you did this pair like that. So no complaints other than the fact that you rotated to do this pair. You should have just done wide F moves. You then did your OLL like this. Not really any complaints here. You finger tricked everything fine and executed it pretty fast. And then for this V perm, you did a U and then a U prime, and then you started the regular alg. And instead of doing a U prime and a rotation, you sort of did a wide D move, which is different than doing a U prime and a rotation, and I'll explain why. So you finish the alg, and then for AUF, you kind of fumbled. You did a U prime, and then you did a U2 prime. So that's just a little thing you have to fix there with recognizing AUF. But in general, with the rotation with the standard V perm alg, the best thing to do is sort of do a U move and a D move at the same time. The U move being done with your left index, and the small D move kind of being done with your left thumb. So you're sort of kind of pinching the entire cube like that. And if you let your right hand guide the cube, then the rotation will come pretty smoothly and it won't even feel like one. I also recommend you try out this alg. And I execute it with an R3 like this. A little faster. Your cross pieces were here, 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 and here, and you did your cross like this. So in terms of move count, this was fine, but the one problem I had with this is that you did your R2 counterclockwise instead of doing it clockwise. The reason why this is so important is because if you do it clockwise, then you can do the D2, and then you can go back into the R prime without having to move your right hand at all. But if you do this with a counterclockwise R2, now your right hand is here, and when you have to do the R prime, it's really awkward, and you're forced to regrip. Otherwise, no complaints. You then did blue-red like this. This is a really bad choice for your first pair. You had a free pair in the back right here, and you could have just inserted it into back left with LU, L prime. So you had a 3-move pair, but you did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 moves instead of a 3-move pair. So your first pair was literally 4 times as slower as it could have been. But if this free pair didn't exist and we just had this pair to look at, then a much better solution would be this. For your second pair, you did green-red, like this. So your solution was pretty efficient, but you had no reason to rotate for your last 3 moves. You did that, but you could have just done F, U, F prime to solve the last 3 moves. Also, an easier and shorter solution would be this. You then did your blue-orange pair as your third pair, like this. So this was a pretty good solution, but we can modify it a little differently to help influence this pair so that it's better. Here's some alternative options that you should know. Both of these are keyhole. Or maybe even rotate and do that. And now you can just go into the pair like this, rotationless. You then did your last pair like this. So you had no reason to rotate twice for this alg. You could just do it rotationless and 2-gen. Like that. And you had this OLL, which you did like this. No major complaints other than your slow recognition time. Then you had this A-perm, which you did like this. And you did the standard alg, so there's no problem with that, but you executed a little sloppily, so here's how you can finger trick it a little better. That's ring middle, right index, ring middle, right index to pull the U prime, and you're done. So for your last solve, you actually did orange cross for some reason. Cross pieces were here, 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 and here, and you did it like this. So first of all, I didn't know that you were color neutral or whether you just did this scramble because orange cross looked easy. But honestly, white cross isn't that bad. You can do it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 moves. It's not horrible. But if we're looking at orange, but if we're looking at your orange solution, it was really bad because you did 2 moves and then you did a Y2, which is absolutely unacceptable during cross. So we can make that solution rotationless like this, or this. You then did this as your first pair. So looking at the F2L in general, it's not a very good start. Like the only pairs that are both in the top layer are literally just the same exact pair but mirrored, and these aren't the prettiest pairs. You either could have solved yellow-green differently like this, or you could have done white-green from this angle like this. You then did green-white like this. So the sledgehammer trick that you used is really helpful for when you have the pair being inserted into the front right slot, but if it's being inserted into the back right slot, it's not going to help you. What you should do instead is do this 5 mover. So then you did blue-yellow as your third pair, like this. So this might look like the best pair to do because it's, just a free pair that needs to be repositioned. But if you look at the blue and white pair, it's actually only 3 moves away. So from this angle, it would go S prime, L prime, S. If that doesn't make sense, then look at it from this angle and look at what happens to the pair. With the S move, it gets paired up, and then with the R move, or R prime, it becomes paired up with the cross, and then all you have to do is just fix the cross with another S move. And now your pair is solved. So although it's tricky to recognize, that 3-move pair is much easier than this pair. That 3-move pair is much easier than the 9-move pair you did. And for your last pair, you did it like this. Okay, that was a very bad solution. You don't want to do that. The standard for this pair would go like this, from this angle. And now you just have a free pair. And from where you're holding it, you should have done it from the back right, like this. You then had this OLO, which you did like this. So your execution was good, but your recognition was bad. You did 3 U primes instead of just doing a U. So make sure you look at the OLL before doing any U moves, and only when you recognize it do you start it. You then had the same A perm from last solve, which you did like this. Obviously a U4 is not the fastest thing to do before doing an A perm, but clearly that's just a bad habit. So same thing with OLL, make sure you just pause and recognize the PLL before you do any pointless U moves. So you have very good basics of CFOP. Your go-to algs for a given pair are usually close to move optimal, and you seem to know your OLLs and PLLs fairly well. With that being said, here's what you need to work on. Number 1 is PLL execution. A lot of the time during your solves, I'm seeing that you lock up or undershoot or overshoot during your PLLs. In order to fix this, all you really need to do is just drill your algs. And by drilling them, I mean you should time them, and the way you do that is you hold the cube in your hand, put your wrists on the timer, and then, do your alg, and then put your wrists back on the timer with the cube back in your hand. Remember, this is only for timing algorithms, not for actually doing solves. That would be cheating. And so you want to see how far you can push that time and see if you can get under a certain barrier. Regularly drilling and practicing your PLLs is really going to help your execution during solves. Because if you don't practice your PLL executions, the only time you're actually doing them is in a solve, and sometimes you need more than that just to get your execution better. Number 2 is cross consistency. So across these 5 solves, you had a couple really good crosses, but also some really bad ones. Like for the good crosses, they were like 3 to 5 moves, but for the bad crosses, you had like multiple rotations and just very inefficient solutions in general. So what you need to do in order to get your cross solutions more consistent is to do untimed solves where you try to find the shortest cross solution. God's number for cross is 8, so you want to get at least under 9 moves every single time. If you get like a 7 to 8 move solution, see if you can get it under 7. Because what sort of separates a good cross from a really nice cross is whether it's 7 or 8 moves or 6 or less moves. If you're getting stuck and you think that there's a better solution for the cross that you just can't find, then go to CS Timer, go to Tools, and click Solver. That'll give you move optimal solutions for all 6 cross colors. So it's a really useful tool to check on your solutions and see if they're optimal. Number 3 is your F2L habits. This is essentially your biggest problem in your solving. It's slowing down your solves the most. One of your bad habits is that you don't always pick the best pairs. There were a couple times where there was a free pair or a 3 or 4 move pair that you didn't notice and you did a different pair that was much longer, which is really bad. In order to fix this, you need to do untimed CFOP FMC solves, where you just try to get the fewest amount of moves, but only using CFOP. That way, you'll be looking at every single F2L pair during F2L and thinking about which one is actually the shortest to do. Once you practice that enough, that will carry into your timed solves, and you'll see yourself planning your pairs in a smarter way. Your second bad F2L habit is inefficient solutions. So you had a couple pair solutions that were bad or inappropriate. For example, you had this kind of setup, which you can solve with sledge and then insert. But you had it here, but you still did the front right insert, which means you have to rotate and then awkwardly insert it. When a much better solution is to do that. So at your speed, it's extremely important to know different solutions for the same kind of pair. So in order to fix this, I recommend you count how many moves each F2L solution of yours takes. And if it's ever over 12, then that's an immediate red flag that you should change your solution. And for the easy pairs that you're doing a little inefficiently, say you're doing a 10 move pair that can actually be solved in 6 moves optimal, then what you want to do is look through AlgDB's F2L section and go through every case and see which ones you're doing inefficiently. Or if you want a little more specificity, you could go to JPerm's F2L tutorial. He covers every single case and he has all good algs, so that's a great resource. And your third bad F2L habit is your lack of look ahead. I can tell that during your solves, you're only really looking at the pair that you're currently doing while you're doing it, which is not what you want to do. You want to be looking for your next pair as you're executing your current pair. And there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to do that if you don't learn how to do F2L pairs blindfolded. What I mean by that is, say I'm doing an untimed practice solve and I'm trying to practice look ahead. A really good practice exercise is to find the pair that you're going to do, say I pick blue, red, and then do the whole thing without looking. And then if you open your eyes and you got it right, then that's good. But if you didn't get it right, then that's something you should work on. Do this for all your F2L pairs until it becomes extremely easy and you don't even have to think about it. The next level from that would be trying to do 2 pairs blindfolded, or doing cross plus first pair blindfolded. So you really need to have all your F2L solutions in your muscle memory so that you have no problem doing them whether you're looking at them or not. That way, once you practice this enough and it carries into your time solves, you won't have to look at the pair you're solving anymore. And that way you can look for other pairs really easily, and that's how look ahead works. But yeah, that's about it. I hope that helped, and happy practicing. Bye.
Wait. You forgot to subscribe. Oh, also I have an Instagrizzle and a Snapchadoodle.
Mish, can you please quiet down? Can you please be quiet?